Hello, everyone. Here we are, December 23rd, Quarantine Live 29, believe it or not. Hold on, I always have to do that thing where I need to kill the volume. There we go. Oh, I did it faster this time than I've ever done before. Believe it or not, here we are. Is it 29? Yes, holy cramoly. Quarantine Live 29. And you know, I have to wait until you all show up. So give me a little shout out when you're here. Oh wait, did I kill the volume? Oh, there you are. Hello from Long Island. There we go. Hello from rainy Wales. It's gonna pour here tomorrow. Hello from Southern California. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our very last, hard to believe, Quarantine Live of 2020, otherwise known as, let's just go ahead and call it what it is, the longest year on Earth, 2020. It's hard to believe you all have hung in with me this long. And West Hurley, you're my neighbor. And hard to believe that what started out, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, what started out 9 months ago as a total whim, which is, as you recall, me turning on the camera back in March to say, hey, let's chat to keep each other company. Because back then, I thought I was going to be in quarantine for 3 weeks. My husband and I packed enough stuff to come up here for 3 weeks. And here we are, 9 months later. So a couple of updates before we get to our guest. First of all, I am going to take a staycation. My husband's going to lose his vacation days if we don't use them, lose them or use them or lose them. So in our reverse life, we're going back to Brooklyn for a week. So you all know that I live in a tiny little apartment in Brooklyn, which is not large enough for 2 people to work from home. I have my studio, but there would be no place for my husband to work. So we came up here to our weekend house, and we've been living a reverse life, which is every once in a while, oh, thank you, Chris. This is Gramercy Park. Chris just said, love the sweater you have on. Not every weekend, but a lot of weekends we've been going back to Brooklyn. So we've decided to have our holiday in Brooklyn. And we won't be able to do our Jewish Christmas, which I'm going to really, really miss. So for those of you who aren't New Yorkers, although apparently most of the country has now stolen the New York Jewish Christmas. And in fact, Gentiles have stolen the New York Jewish Christmas, which is, for many, many years, the tradition is, if you're Jewish and you don't celebrate Christmas, it's always fabulous Chinese food at a fabulous Chinese restaurant and going to the movies. And I've done that with my friends for many, many years. Obviously, there are no movie theaters to go to. There's no indoor dining is not really a thing. Outdoor dining is getting a little chilly. So I'm going to miss that. But we do have a fireplace, and we have Zoom, and we have all of that good stuff. So I just want to thank you all so much for spending time with me, spending time with each other. I love when you guys start chatting amongst yourselves that, you've gotten to know each other over this time. So it's been a crazy year. And I just want to say, that I hope, I wrote a post about winter solstice on Instagram a couple of days ago. Winter solstice being the kind of dividing line between light and darkness, right? It's the shortest day of the year, which means after we get past winter solstice, the light starts to grow, right? Daylight starts to get longer and nighttime start to get shorter. And I found that particularly poignant this time of year, in this year. So I hope for, my hope for all of you is that our light grows and our darkness diminishes. I know it's been a terribly difficult time for many of us, and many people have lost loved ones. And I just want to say, hang in there. We're going to get to the other side of this. I promise. And we've found many wonderful things during this time that would otherwise be so dark. And one of the wonderful things we've found is that we can still find a way to connect. And the other really wonderful thing that we found is the ability to keep teaching, keep taking classes through Zoom. I was amazed when I looked on the calendar and I counted it up. I taught a class on Sunday afternoon was my last class of 2020, and not counting the quarantine lives and not counting the knit groups that I've run, I've taught a shocking 87 classes, April through December. So that means my teaching schedule was heavier now than even it was when I used to fly all over the freaking globe. So there. And one of the other wonderful things is being able to meet some new teachers through Zoom that I haven't met on the teaching circuit. So there's a lot of teachers all over the world that shows might not be able to afford to fly here, but thanks to the wonders of Zoom, we can take their classes. So I was really happy to meet our guest, which I'm about to introduce, at a Vogue training session. I train the teachers, and we started chatting because he is really well known for teaching Portuguese knitting. And as many of you know, I teach Portuguese knitting, and but I'm not by any means an expert. I teach it within a series of classes of lots of different ways to teach. And so we started talking about, like, I was asking him questions about, do you ever have trouble with your camera angle and the yarn coming from your neck? Or, because sometimes I'll just slap it around my neck. I don't always wear it on a pin. So anyway, we just started chatting about that. And then my friend Pam started taking his classes, and Pam is a big fan and said he's an amazing teacher and she has so enjoyed his classes. So I thought, this might be a fun person to share with all of you. So this is my very first guest who isn't just, one of my old friends. So I'm really excited, and I'm hoping I don't mangle his name too much. But if everyone can please welcome Andre de Castro. Woo! And the crowd goes wild. Hopefully I said this name pretty much okay. Hello. Oh, you had a costume change.
No, I only put the shawl and nothing more.
No, I know, but you were hiding that. You saucy little minx. You didn't show me that before.
No, just now.
Oh my God, so now the power tools have started. Can you guys hear that? Okay, now it's really loud. All right. Sorry if anyone's picking up on power tool noises. I'm finally getting a new hot water heater installed. I've been without hot water since Wednesday. So anyway, I was lucky to get to meet Andre at a show in Colorado right before quarantine.
Yeah, I was there in February. It was the last time I flew to the United States.
Yeah, February was my last teaching gig that I think was in Virginia, I think. I forget where I was, but yeah, February was my last teaching gig. Holy camole.
Yeah.
So wait, I thought you said you'd been only in Boston and Block Island.
In Colorado also. It was the last time.
You forgot about Colorado. because we were chatting before about, you know,
Yeah.
where in the US you've traveled. Oh, so you've been to Colorado too. Oh.
There last February, yeah. And,
So that was probably cold. Colorado in February.
yeah, it was a little bit cold, yeah. But it's a different kind of coolness that is here in Portugal, yeah. It's very dry. Where I live, it's very humid, you know. And I think we feel more if it's more humidity on the air, if it is so dry, I would say there.
See, they always say that in the US, people always talk about that, but for the heat. And it so much that it becomes like a joke. Like, oh, it's not the heat, it's the humidity. You know, people talk about like they live in Arizona and it's 107 degrees. That's you know, the fake temperature.
Yeah.
That's Fahrenheit, the weird temperature that nobody else uses because we don't work and play well with others. But that's really hot. But then they'll say like it's a dry heat, so it's okay. It's not humid. But I've never heard that about the cold.
Yeah, yeah. I was not so much cold, and we don't have that temperature here in Portugal that we reached out in Colorado last February at all.
So what are your extremes? You don't get very cold and very hot?
Yeah, we got very hot in summer, but cold not so much. Go like, I don't know in Fahrenheit because we use Celsius, but it's like 0 or -1 or something. We don't go further than that. Yeah.
Right, because that makes sense. Like the whole concept of zero being freezing
Yeah.
is so normal. Like that's so logical. Oh, 0, freezing.
Yeah.
But here it's 32 is freezing.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. But we also measure things and I mean everything.
Yeah, with the measure system, I'm already used with the inch things, but with the temperature, I don't know.
It's so ridiculous. I mean, I don't know if you knew this, but here in America, we people of my age, we spent many years learning the metric system because in the 80s we were going to transition to the metric system and we were going to join the rest of the world. And there's a hilarious podcast that's all about why that did not work out, but it came down to nuts and bolts, not machinery itself, but the nuts and bolts inside machinery and how expensive it would be to retool everything. And so then President Reagan just went, oh, never mind.
Yeah, only because of that. Okay.
So there we sit. Oh, we have a hello from Boston. Yes, she says, I'm pretty sure you were here. You were in Boston.
Yeah.
Rosemary says. Now, were you at the Guild?
No, I was in Boston just passing by. I was not there teaching. It was on the way to the Block Island. Yeah.
Oh, because Boston has an amazing teaching knitting guild. So if they ever ask you, say yes, because they put you in this gorgeous. It's like a club, so it's an old mansion, and the rooms are gorgeous, and it's right by the public gardens, and it's beautiful.
Okay. No, I'm just passing by. I stayed there 2 days or something. Yeah.
So what's it like? What are the differences? I always think this is interesting, the differences in students. How would you describe the differences in the students in the US versus home?
Versus home. Portugal, it's a different place. It's you can't so much compare it because netting in Portugal, it's like to start about a little more that it was. Not right now, but from 10 years now, it starts all the craziness about netting in Portugal. But before it was very down, yeah, for many, many years. Since the changing when you have that 80s and 70s that I don't know it happened in the US, all the people suddenly stop netting and began with the machines thing. Yeah. And since then, it was completely off in Portugal. And it was very old-fashioned if you saw some granny in the bus knitting or something. And suddenly it becomes to go again 10 years ago or something. Yeah.
So so it is a little later than the revival here, but not that much later. So here I would say it was in, for sure, totally out of fashion in the 70s, for sure. But it was in the 90s here
Okay.
that things started to get crazy. And initially we called it like the fun fur craze. So there was like novelty yarn and
Mm.
people just knitting scarves, just garter stitch scarves in this novelty yarn.
Yeah.
But I would say it may be closer to only about a decade ago that the high skill level
Yeah. Yeah.
of, people wanting to learn Fair Isle and, you know, cables and lace and Estonian lace and like really
Yeah.
technique driven stuff. That I feel like has been about a decade. And of course,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Ravelry changed everything. That like opened up the whole world.
Yeah, but in Portugal, the people were very resistant to the internet stuff, so they didn't know a lot about Ravelry and this stuff. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Years ago, just to give you an example, 10 years ago, there were a bunch of people that didn't know what were circular needles. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because they only used the normal straight ones. Yeah. So it was a big revolution. But at that time, I knew it already, the internet and stuff, because my interest in knitting become a little back more. And I traveled around the world to see how was the knitting stuff, and also to learn from specific techniques from different styles in different countries. Because it's what I like to do. It's to learn things from where they are made.
Mm.
Okay. And I saw, wow, there is a lot of stuff that the people don't know in Portugal. So let me know the knowledge to take them. And it was the beginning of my journey, actually.
So what was the impetus for that? What was the first thing that made you think, oh, it would be fun. I think I'd like to travel around the world and learn different knitting techniques and then
Yeah,
bring them home.
actually, I will start from the beginning. My first profession, I have a degree in violin. I'm a violin player, and I studied in Italy. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, I'm a professional violinist. Yeah, I studied in Italy, in Milan, for 4 years there, and it was my first contact with fashion and these things, because Milan has a lot of fashion industry and this stuff. Uh, in my home, anyone couldn't knit. So they mainly sew or crochet or something, but it was not so interesting for me. But it was a neighbor from me who knitted some things, and I find it very interesting because actually with knitting, it's very portable and you can make garments without that sewing stuff with scissors and fabric all the way around. I think it's a very portable, and you can make garments really. So when I was there in Milan, I saw all the knitting industry that they have, but I was interested in make it by hand, and it was when I began. When I come back to Portugal, I started to be interested about it and search in books in the internet. I order all kind of books from different countries I can, and I saw that there is a lot to know and a lot to learn. And I decided to travel around different places, Shetland Islands, all kind of places to know. Yeah,
Oh,
and it was my beginning. And at that time, I was very down because my mother died on that time when I was 23. It
oh,
was
young.
an fire, and I began having panic attacks. So one time, it was a friend who came to play with me and stayed in my home, and she was knitting a sock. And she told me, "Oh, you should try this because it's a very you'll make very repetitive movement and something. Maybe it can relax you." And I tried, and it helps really. And it was my escape for the panic attacks I had. Yeah,
Wow. Yeah,
yeah,
I found it really interesting. The first like I'm not I'm Jewish, so I don't really I'm not familiar with I didn't think about Catholic prayer beads right away. But when I went to Japan and
yeah,
I saw the monks,
Yeah.
working with their prayer beads, which is not that dissimilar from a Catholic rosary. They're moving an object from their left hand to their right hand, from their left hand to their right hand, from the left hand to the right hand. And I said that to a friend of mine who is a fallen away Catholic. He's like, yeah, it's the same with a rosary. And I said, it's the same with knitting.
Actually, the rosary comes from that. It's the Portuguese name for that is japamala. I don't know if it's the same in English. That Tibetan kind of rosary you have. It's the name. Yeah, I use it a lot of times
I have no
because I
idea.
love this part. But it's the same. It came from there. Yeah. So
And
it's
I mean, if you're doing garter, if it's not a wildly complicated pattern, if it's just something that you can even even a cable or lace, when you get the hang of it, it's that moving from passing from the left to the right, passing from the left to the right. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and it's very relaxing. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a whole study done many years ago about things that fire the right and the left hemisphere at the same time. In the original study, they wired up swimmers who are doing the crawl, which is equally balanced right and left, equally balanced right and left. And it was studying not just the calming effects, but just everything that it does to your body when the right and the left hemisphere of your brain are both firing, when you're using both sides of your body. And somebody in the study, one of the scientists, was a knitter, and they said, oh, you should wire up a knitter too. It's the same thing. We move our left hand, our right hand, our left hand, our right hand. So yeah, I love that stuff. That.
Yeah, it's the same thing when you are playing. For example, when I play, you have to use both hands. Also, yeah, it's a very repetitive movement. Yeah, you make. Yeah.
Do you still play?
Yeah. Not so much right now because I was in an orchestra player, but and I was teaching also children how to play and something. But I gave up from teaching like 5 years ago. It was when I changed really for all knitting stuff. Yeah. But when someone asks me to do a concert or something, I made one last month or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Wow. Do you miss it?
Yeah, I miss it. Yeah. But I still play at home, and when it's something special, I really do it. Yeah.
Well, when this is all over, and you can travel again, if you come to New York, you should definitely. A trip to Carnegie Hall it's a beautiful experience. I used to go with my friend Melissa all the time. She has that's the thing that she's having the most trouble with, I think, in all of COVID, is music, is not having. And I've tried to encourage her. There's all these concerts on Zoom, and she's like, it's not the same. It's not the same.
And the concerts now, to be on stage, it's very hard. The musicians are suffering a lot with this thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, what I did before this, I was a stage manager. So my heart is still with all my Broadway friends. And Broadway will be the very last, probably far behind music still. Broadway will be the last thing to come back. Theater will be the last thing to come back, because I think theater and dance, because with music, they'll be able to figure out, I think, a way to get musicians safely back on stage together. But singing is dangerous.
Yeah, singing it's dangerous. We made the concert that I said last month. We made it, but we are like 2 meters apart from each one, so it's possible to make.
Oh, it was live. Oh, when you said that, I assumed it was like a solo thing on Zoom. Oh, it was live. Oh.
It was recorded there's no public, okay, but the musicians were there. Yeah, we have enough space. It was a smaller orchestra, but and there were 2 singers also, but very far from us. There was not choirs, for example, because choirs, it's very dangerous. Right. Actually, a choir, a friend of mine, last month they get all contaminated with the virus.
Well, that was in the States. That was a very, very, very early story. COVID first showed up. Well, we thought it first showed up in Washington State, but it actually turned out that it showed up in Santa Clara, which in February, which is one of my last teaching gigs, was in Santa Clara. And then I got really, really sick. So I have no idea whether I actually got COVID. I don't think I did. But there was a chorus in somewhere in Washington. Yeah. And it was bad.
Yeah.
It was very bad. But anyway, yeah, I think I think the idea of whatever happens, no matter where I am, when Broadway comes back, I need to be in the theater that night. I need to be sitting in the audience. So I hope I get enough advance warning to make sure that, you know, if we are like traveling again, because before this happened, I was one of those crazy teachers that was like on a plane pretty much every week during in the fall and the spring. I was on a plane like every week, but yeah, I for sure want to be sitting in the theater.
Yeah.
The day that curtain goes up again would be amazing.
It's not the same thing for this kind of shows. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to be there playing without public, only for cameras, it's strange, because you can't hear the breathing of the people, you can't hear the applause, all the things. Yeah.
Yeah. But it still must have been so nice to just be with other musicians.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
because, you know, it's funny, this has nothing to do with COVID, but many, many years ago in the sets on Broadway got larger and larger and larger. And the pit is, you know, where the orchestra is in a theater, there's a pit.
Yeah.
But the sets on Broadway started to get so large, they needed to blow out over the pit.
Yeah.
And so the musicians got separated. And the days of having a conductor there and 40 people in a Broadway pit were gone. And what a lot of people don't know is that the Broadway orchestras got separated and split all over the theater. So there'd be like a friend of mine once, he played in a shower in one of the dressing rooms, like just him in a shower, and they all have monitors, video monitors where they can see the conductor. But it's so different when you're not feeling the other musicians all around you, when you're all separated in these separate rooms wearing headphones, and, you know, it becomes more like you're a studio musician. But not unlike missing being in the room with your students. So what do you think of the, you've only taught, you said, have you taught twice in the US in person?
Yeah, twice. Yeah. Because I was starting to teach in the US when this thing comes up. Yeah. I taught in a lot of different places. I was in Barcelona Knits, in Perth Festival of Yarn. I had a lot of gigs to make Chatham Ludwig. That not happened, unfortunately. Yeah. But in the US, yes. I was there 2 times only.
Yeah. So do you feel like, so you've taught in a lot of different countries then. So do you have a sense of like, are there differences between students in different countries, do you think?
Yeah, one thing that people in Portugal are very resistant, it's the language, because the public you have knitting in Portugal, now you're getting more new people and more younger people knitting, but it's a lot of middle-aged people, and they are not taught at school how to learn English, so they have a lot of difficulties to read patterns in English and all this stuff, you know. So it's quite hard, because the main language you are taught in school until the 80s was French, not English. On my time, it was English already. We have like 12 years of English, but they had 12 years of French at the time. So they are not so able to read through a pattern or something. Yeah, but it's a question of practice, because once you learn the first thing, all after it's the same. And one thing that's also very difficult in Portugal, it's not like in English that you have a knit, a purl, and SSK or something. We in Portugal we have different names for the things. There's not a standard language, and it's a big problem. So if you are in the north, some people can call it one thing. If you are in the south, others call another thing. So there's not units on the language about knitting.
Oh,
Yeah.
even within the country, there's not
Yeah.
an agreement.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it makes it a little hard sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, we're used to, oh, I'll get to that in a second, where you have some good questions. Yeah, we're used to differences. For instance, British patterns have different names for things, you know, because the UK and America are two cultures separated by a common language. So, you know, little things like tension versus gauge, but then YF, yarn forward, versus YO, yarn over, because they're hold the yarn in the right hand.
Yeah.
English knitters hold the yarn in the right hand. So the act of moving the yarn to the front and then inserting the needle in to make a stitch and then making it creates a yarn over. I felt terribly behind in questions, but I have where to go? Oh, Harriet said, what does he teach, his specialty? And Shannon said, he teaches Portuguese knitting, but you teach a lot of other things as well. That's just what you're primarily first known for is Portuguese knitting. But I saw you have a new lace class.
Yeah, I have a lace class also about more or less a Portuguese subject because it's named Lace by Music. It's a cultural knitting subject from Portugal. I taught already in Vogue Knitting this class. It's, you see these lace swatches behind me?
Yeah.
They are Lace by Music thing.
What does that mean?
What that means? Okay, so we have the instructions to make the lace. You don't have charts. You have written instructions that are like a code, and mainly it's because on the early 20th century, when the knitters made this kind of knitting, they didn't know how to read or write, so they have to invent a system to read the patterns. So they make it by symbols, numbers, and letters. And we call it lace by music because normally you can saw a lady on a stair sitting, and another one was singing the instructions for the lady to knit the pattern, you know. So like I'm telling you, singing to you the instructions for you knit. So it's because of this, it's named lace by music.
Oh, that sounds so cool. I love stuff like that. Have you been to Bruges?
Yeah.
So I loved, you know, the lace museums and I love they have the notation. They have samples of the notation system.
Yeah.
That was so interesting. I loved that. Yeah. Oh, travel. I remember that. Travel seems so long ago.
It's a forgotten technique in Portugal. I only know 3 or 4 ladies, very old ones, like in the 90s, who made this already. And almost you don't have instruction, you only have samples. And I'm making a kind of collection with all the samples I can. So I make the tradition don't goes down and don't disappear. Yeah, because if no one takes care about it, in 10 years it will disappear. Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's so many things like that. There's so many. Yeah, it like reminds me of languages that if you don't keep them alive, you know, they die.
Yeah.
Can it only be? I'm just thinking about the violin. Can it only be sung, or can you assign notes? And can you play the lace on your violin and have a little recording of it?
There's no. They call it music because it resembles music, but there is not really a specific song they sing. You know, it's the rhythm and the fastness how you tell the instructions. It looked like a song. Okay, there is not a specific music for that. Yeah,
I think you should assign the symbols to notes, and then you can play the lace on your violin in class.
Yeah.
And you can start a whole new tradition of bringing your two lives together.
Yeah, one of my ideas, and I have to work on it, it's to make a connection between the music symbols and the knitting. And for example, take a music or something and giving each note and each symbol correspondence, with a knitting symbol, making a chart or something coming from that and see what's coming.
Yeah, and that would be amazing. And then you could have, in crochet, there's freeform crochet. Prudence Mapstone is the queen of freeform crochet. So the equivalent of that would be, if you're knitting jazz, then it's kind of improvisational. You could have all sorts of different vibes and feeling from that knit based on, the form of music.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, I would take that class.
Yeah.
Let's see what, where are we? Oh, I took a fashion drawing class and a class called Lace by Music. Both were great. Still using both. Oh, so you've taught that one before.
Yeah, because after I studied a lot of knitting subjects, but I studied fashion design and fashion illustration also, and I draw and paint also. Yeah,
I'm the worst at that, and now I don't have to worry about it so much. But for a while, when I entered the design world through the sort of the old, I guess what's now considered old fashioned, which is the publishing route, which is from magazines. So when you self-publish, you do not have to sketch your design for anybody to see and understand and approve of and choose to publish. You can just, like you should see, I don't have it with me, but like I was actually texting Pam, who's one of your students, some photos. I was trying to find a notepad because we're talking on the phone. I need to write something down. And I found this notepad and it had all my like ridiculous sketches. I can't even call them sketches. And I was taking photos and texting them. And I was like, look, this one became Palm Canyon. Look, this was my original drawing for Volition. But when I used to, I had Trisha Malcolm on, who was used to be the editor-in-chief of Vogue. And I asked her if she remembered the story where I was sitting at her desk and I, was talking about an idea I had for a sweater and I sketched it. I did a little drawing of it. And she kind of like pushed the piece of paper back at me across the table. And she said, why don't you, draw it and then send it to me so I can get a sense of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and it's amazing because I'm always asked for students want to make submissions for magazines or something, and in magazines that they always ask for a sketch or something, and some are terrified how to make a sketch or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was, oh no, I might be screwing this up. Somebody taught a class, and it might have been Deborah Newton, who we were talking about earlier, about sketching for Vogue years ago. And I thought, oh God, I'd love to take that class because I'm terrible. I'm absolutely terrible. Yeah. Do you do it all by freehand or do you do it on like an iPad with
No, I use freehand. Yeah.
Were you always good or did you actually take classes?
I learned. Yeah. I never touched a pencil before my 20 something. So anyone can learn how to draw. It's not a skill you're born with. Anyone can learn to draw. Yeah.
But weirdly, it is a skill that you can lose and get rusty. Because I actually used to be not bad. Because back in the day when I went to college, I was a theater major because I was going to be a stage manager. I was a stage manager. And because for a stage manager, you have to understand all the aspects of theater. In your training, you take scenic design classes, you take art classes, you take lighting classes, you take acting, you take everything. And so I did have figure study classes and I was not bad. But but fabric is hard to draw. And naked men are much easier to draw than if they were wearing clothes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, clothes are hard.
All things begins with the body proportions you have to know. Yeah, it's a first thing. Before you put clothes on, you have to know how to draw the human proportions. Yeah.
But drawing lace is really hard.
Yeah, but on a sketch, you don't have to be detailed, you know, because there is a difference between a sketch. It's the one before you made the item, and the illustration is the one you made after. So the illustration, it's like if you take a picture of the garment, okay?
Right.
The sketch don't have to be like this. You only have to put the major features you will have on the garment. You don't have to draw stitch by stitch and all the things like that. You only need to get a global view of what you are try to reproduce to the publisher or something.
Yeah. Like I would just make little wiggly lines with
Yeah,
a little, like cable panel here, and then
yeah.
then I'd swatch
For
it.
example, the sketch also don't have to be in a figure. It can be a flat drawing or something. You don't have to have the body, the actual body. Yeah. If you call illustration, it's different. Yeah. This drawing I have here, for example, it's an illustration. It's after the thing it's done.
Wait, I'm going to make it bigger so I can see it.
Yeah.
Ooh. Ooh, and I didn't actually see when your picture was smaller, I couldn't really see all those colorwork swatches. Ooh.
Yeah, yeah. The colorwork, the swatch above the drawing, it's the one I made the sweater too.
I also love the one just to the right of that.
The one to the right of that, it's very nice because it's part of my colorwork in Portuguese knitting style.
Oh, yeah.
When I teach in vogue knitting, what I've done is to teach, and I make some drawings of it, taking patterns from Portuguese tapestries. It's a Portuguese tapestry motif there, and also from tiles and its kind of stuff, because I don't know if you know, Portugal is very famous for tiles. And I take all these motifs and I transform them in colorwork and patterns for colorwork.
Wow. Yeah, I love taking colorwork from tiles. I'm not really a colorwork designer at all, but I remember one this is named Flagstaff Vest because this was inspired by a little stripe of tile on this beautiful aqua wall, and this one little stripe of tile, and it was very, Southwestern, but yeah, I love using tile for inspiration. That's a little bit of a goal for me, is to try to bust out of my one color world.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite techniques. It's colorwork knitting. Yeah, I like very much. Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
I love the knitting part. I don't feel as confident as a designer choosing the colors.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that's my lack of confidence. Knitting, yeah, I'll knit it all day long, but I might make my friends choose the colors.
To choose the colors, to make the color combinations and this stuff.
Yeah, it's just not my wheelhouse. It's not like what I do, like Mary Jane Mucklestone. It's not like what I do every day of my life. So
it's all about, you can have a lot of inspiration in all the things you can see, and also it's a little bit of color theory also, but it's nothing a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, well, first of all, I don't know if you ever experienced this, but I feel like a lot of people a little bit will get in their own way or overcomplicate. Well, they'll get in their own way, assuming that everybody else is better at something and they're a faker and a dilettante. Or maybe that's just a female thing. It's for sure a female thing. Like we undervalue ourselves a lot. So I feel like, every color choice I would make would be so mundane and not like interesting and inspiring enough. It would all be like color theory, but I don't have that like, wow, no one would have ever thought of putting this color with this color. But then again, every single color combination in the world doesn't have to be the earth-shattering.
No. And as I always say, all colors can be combined. You just need to know how to do it. But you can combine all colors together, for sure.
Really?
Yeah.
All
true.
right.
It can be in different places, okay? But you can combine all kinds of colors.
Right. They might just not be right next to each other. Oh, someone says, oh, why aren't you talking about knitting? I thought we were talking about knitting. Okay. Why aren't we talking about knitting? I think we were. Would you like?
I think it was on the beginning when we were talking about.
And also because we're human beings who do many things. So sometimes we're talking about other things like our lives or travel or music or theater. I'm a full believer in being allowed to be a well-rounded human that does things other than knit. But why for those folks? Oh, there's Pam. Pam finally showed up. You're late, Pam. For those folks that want like a CV description, you know, your elevator pitch of who you are and what you teach and why they would want to take a class with you. What would be your elevator pitch of who you are and what is your pedagogy? Fancy schmancy term for teaching philosophy.
Yeah, besides the Portuguese knitting and to show my heritage about knitting, I like also different kinds of techniques, as I told before, like color work. I love brioche knitting, for example. Yeah, and I love one thing. It's to make difficult things appear easy to other people. It's one of the things of teaching that I like, and I think I'm quite proud to be able to teach different kinds of persons and different kinds of people, because I know that the way I teach something to you, it's not the same. And other students, I have to talk to them. So I have to, and it's the difficult to be teacher for me. It's to be able to teach different persons the same thing in different ways. Sometimes I have to find 50 different ways to explain the same thing. You know?
Totally.
Yeah. And I think I gained it a lot because I was usual to teach children, and with children you get a lot of patience and how to teach a different thing to the same person, you know, and to the same person the same thing. So sometimes it doesn't work one time and you have to go over around and try a different style to the people until she get it. And I think for me it's the most valuable thing about teaching. Yeah.
But kids
And
are way easier to teach than adults.
yeah,
Adults are much harder.
yeah, maybe because they don't have previous knowledge, or they can't judge the way you are teaching or something.
Adults come with their own baggage, so they get in their own way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Kids don't get in their own way quite so much.
Yeah. It's because of this I like very much Portuguese knitting, because normally the people come to me with no luggage, with no behind, so they start from the beginning. They start right away from the beginning, and you don't have bad habits or something, so it's much more easy. And also my way, I like to introduce the other techniques allied to the Portuguese knitting. So the colorwork knitting in Portuguese style, it's a different way to do colorwork. That I saw that people like it very much because it's much more easy, they say. Okay, they say about to manage the yarns and the things. So it's a new vision.
Do you work it inside out?
No, normally, yeah. Because I think inside out you can see the pattern, and I know a lot of people, and I teach a little if they want inside out how to make it, but I teach in the regular way. Only the way to put the threads I use in Portuguese way. Yeah, and also the other techniques that people normally get struggle with normal continental or English style, when they change it for Portuguese, they seem like to be more easy, like brioche knitting, all these things. So I try to teach them in a different style that people can reach it out and maybe try it. Yeah.
The only thing I thought was really interesting about the idea of doing a hat inside out, a colorwork hat inside out, many years ago at TNNA, which was our now defunct professional conference. Many years ago, I took a class from Andrea Wong, and she said that often people who are new to Fair Isle,
Mhm.
and they bring those floats across way too tight. They like strangle their knitting, right? Well, if you're working a hat and you're making those floats way too tight, well, they're traveling on the inside, on the concave part. And so they're really, really tight, and the hat might be, wrinkled like an old man. And so if that is something that you struggle with, if you're doing it inside out, now your float is traveling across the wide part. And so you can't make it too tight. So that was a fun little
Yeah.
like brain twister.
Yeah, and also when I make for you are talking about the colorwork knitting, I normally people teach the colorwork knitting in the round, or with the right side facing or with the wrong side facing. When I'm making, I teach flat, so they can learn the right side and the wrong side. For me, it's the best way to teach it. So because if you want to, because I will say one thing that it's not so good. I don't like too much circular garments. I prefer in parts.
Give me a virtual high five on that one. I can't let me tell you. Here I
Yeah,
have a pile of seamed garments,
yeah,
and I'm primarily a sweater designer, right? So my whole it's so odd. This has only been the past, I would say, 5 years tops, that this insane perception is that most patterns are worked in the round.
yeah,
Like sometimes people who do like seams will write to me and say, do you have it's so hard to find a seamed garment. And I'll do a Ravelry search and I'm like, really? Because there's X number of garments tagged seamed, and
yeah,
there's X number of projects tagged seamless. It's 10% of the
yeah,
overall. And it's because throughout the course of history of publishing patterns, mostly have been seamed garments.
yeah.
So the perception of it's so hard to find a seamed garment is because the newer designers are only doing,
Seamless one.
yeah.
Yeah, because
But
if you go back, you know that story about Elizabeth Zimmerman that went with a seamless garment, and they asked to make a seamed garment to a publisher. You know that
right.
story. But
And
for me, not all the seamless garments fits well in a body.
well, right. I mean, so here's the thing about like what's funny about people hanging on to something that Easy said as if it was biblical
Yeah,
is that is exactly the opposite of the spirit of Elizabeth Zimmerman. If she knew that people were quoting her and saying, but Elizabeth Zimmerman says to do, she would be horrified because that's antithetical to everything she believed. So, first of all, she did primarily the fairly non-fitted, shapeless, and she did a lot of color work. And her assistant I mean, not her assistant, Meg Swanson's assistant for many, many years, Amy Dachin. Do you know, have you met
yeah,
Amy like through
yes,
Vogue?
yeah,
So, Amy will be the first to say, like, listen, I teach the Elizabeth Zimmerman percentage system, but like, it doesn't look good on everybody. It's not like a universally flattering
yeah,
shape. So, yeah, I mean, there are certain garments that I use an example of a garment that many years ago when I was a knitter and I would like do anything to avoid a mattress stitch before I learned like mattress stitch is magic.
yeah,
And I jumped through so many hoops. I made it so much harder. I took this garment that was designed to be flat and I converted it into the round, which meant redoing the shaping, and then I don't want to seam the sleeve. So I redid the sleeves for a top down short row sleeve. I mean, I made it so much harder. I wore it once
yeah,
because it looks terrible
yeah.
because the seams were there for a reason. So yeah, oh my God.
Yeah,
I
this
would,
is a structural part of the garment.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
You don't,
I'm mostly a seamed sweater girl.
yeah, for we compare it, we don't have normal fabric clothes without seams. There is a reason.
Yeah, and the other thing is, if a designer a skilled designer designs seamless. A really skilled seamless designer, like to me, Carol Feller, Julie Wessenberger of Coco Knits, these are designers that every thought, the stitch pattern, the yarn they choose, the construction, it's all thought through to make sure that that garment works well. That's very different than taking a design that was meant to be seamed and converting it to seamless.
Yeah.
It's a horse of a different color. What are you knitting, by the way?
Only a sock. It's a mindless knit thing. Yeah.
What's your favorite thing to knit if you didn't have to worry about generating income from it? So it's not a pattern, it's not a class sample, it's just for you, just your happy place knitting.
But you are talking about the garment, for example, a piece or
anything. Like, what is your favorite thing to knit if you didn't have to worry about, I have to knit this thing to generate income? Just your personal, as a knitter, happy place knitting.
Yeah, sweaters. Yeah.
Me too.
Sweaters. Yeah. Sweaters and shawls. Shawls. I love shawls also.
See, I'm not a shawl girl.
I love shawls. You can see.
I can.
Yeah, this one. By the way, someone was asking which pattern is this one. You can find it on my Ravelry page. Yeah, this one. It's one I designed. Yeah.
Ooh. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I see. The solid isn't just solid. I thought that was just stockinette when it was wrapped around you, but now I can see it.
No.
Ooh.
No, this is with some things here. Here have a little of mosaic, and here I have a lace thing. Okay. And also my designs are always based, all of them have stories normally, because I like to begin with a mood boards about the story of the garment before I make the garment, And this one, the name, it's Eulimene. It means it's a name of a sea nymph, from the Greek mythology. So here you can see drops of water. Yeah. And here the sea foam.
Excellent.
The part.
And where's the is it a tab? Where's the cast on?
Yeah, it's a tab cast on.
It's here. Okay.
And it goes. Yeah.
I don't know why I never got into designing shawls. I just didn't.
Yeah, and this one also, for example, I like very much shawls because I use it a lot also. This one you can find it also. Yeah.
What's that one called?
Diopsides or diopsides. It's a name of a stone, a crystal, because I love a lot crystals also. And here you can see on the stitch pattern, it's like when you cut the stone, you have these different faces of the stone, when you make into jewelry or something. And here you can see the thing of the stone.
Oh, cool. Yeah, the different facets. Oh, I used to be a rock collector when I was a kid. I loved that stuff. I loved, putting rocks in a rock polisher and wondering, what was going to happen, because it was always a surprise.
And
what's that one?
I love brioche thing. And this one I made the name, it's Brioche Nancy, because it's in homage for Nancy Marchand, who was the one who taught me how to brioche knitting.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's this one. Yeah.
That's so nice. Did you take class in person with Nancy?
Yeah, with Nancy.
Oh, she's lovely.
Yeah, she's lovely.
Oh, someday we'll see our teacher friends again.
Yeah.
Oh, I miss all my teacher friends.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Someone. Yeah, the people can find it on Ravelry. Just look for my name and it's there. So now.
And is your Rav name just your actual name?
Yeah, my actual name.
Okay, yeah. Because sometimes designers have like a Ravelry name, and then it's harder to find their stuff if they don't just use their own name.
Andean Castro, and it appears there. Yeah, my latest design is this sweater. It's in the round because they asked me to be in the round. But with this one, it was not so fuzzy because it's straight body. It's not fit or something. It was for a Portuguese magazine, And when the 6 months go off of the magazine, I will publish in English also this one.
Oh, nice.
Named Marigold. One.
You know, the very first time I ever saw Portuguese knitting was at a yarn store I used to teach at, and I taught a class called Sweater School. And when you teach in a yarn store, that's when you have to keep learning different ways to knit, because your students don't recognize, like if I'm throwing and it's a continental knitter and they're like, I can't see what you're demoing. So, you know, okay, fine, I have to learn continental. And then, you know, I met people who had their stitches mounted with their leading leg in the back for both the knit and the purl. Okay, now I have to learn Eastern. So anyway, I thought like, okay, now I've learned everything. And I had a student who had his yarn around his neck. I'm like, okay, now what's this? What's going on now? Now I have to learn this. So yeah, that's the first time I saw it, was a student of mine.
Yeah.
And then I took classes with Andrew Wong. And but the funny thing is, I told the story in the Craftsy class about names, about how we name things. So many different names for things, like continental is also called, you know, picking. It can also be called German. It used to be called German. That's when it fell out of favor in America in World War II. So I was knitting, I was teaching a class, and I had the yarn going around my neck. And this was at this yarn store, and a knitter said, oh, what is it? What are you doing? What is that stitch? What are you doing? And I thought she meant that the yarn was going around my neck. And I said, oh, this is Portuguese knitting. And she said, well, I mean, I knit with the yarn like that, but what is that stitch? And I was just doing the knit stitch. And she said, oh, I only work in the round. And she did everything inside out. Yep. She only purled. And she said, but why did you call it Portuguese? I said, oh, well, that's just what it's called. Where did you learn it? And she said, it's just how we knit. I'm from Bosnia. And I said, oh, well, what do you call it there? And she said, knitting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about the Portuguese knitting stuff. Yeah, you can have it in these kind of countries like Bosnia, Greece. They have it also. Turkey, they have. You have it also in Andes.
Yeah, because you can also call it. You also hear it referred to as Andean knitting sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
because, as far as we know, it came from this tradition came from the Mediterranean countries. You know, so it was bought Portugal by the Muslims or something. And the people who spread it out was the Portuguese and the Spanish when they conquered the America, and they brought it to Andes and all this stuff. And maybe it's called Portuguese knitting because I think it's a country where you knit this style. Almost all the people knit like this. You only have 1% that don't knit like this. I think it's because of that. They call it Portuguese knitting. Yeah.
It's great. It's a wonderful thing to be able to offer to someone that has sometimes pain in their wrist. I mean, the only thing I say is like, depends on where your arthritis is, which thumb, because there is, you know, there's the one disadvantage that if you have it in your flicking thumb, if you have arthritis in the thumb that you use.
Only a thing, because I can, but I can show for someone who doesn't know, because what it's nice in Portuguese knitting, it's you don't make almost any movement. You only make this with your thumb, nothing more. So you have a lot of economy of movements. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to move the hands like this or throwing or picking or something. So you don't hurt your hands like nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, you must hear this all the time, but it was always gratifying when someone would say, that they had arthritis and they thought they lost knitting entirely. And, then I taught them Portuguese and it brought their knitting back.
Yeah, I have a lot of students who are coming to Portuguese knitting class because they have some injuries on their hands and they need to change their techniques to continue.
Yeah, I mean, it's wonderful, the idea that for a knitter who thinks maybe they've lost the ability to knit, and then, you might be part of giving them their knitting back is a pretty nice thing.
Yeah. And I had several students with very serious injuries in the hands. They can't knit it at all. And in Portuguese knitting, they can start it over again. to
Yeah.
knitting.
Oh my goodness. Okay, it's almost 3. I'm going to scroll back and see if I've got missed anything really interesting. Oh, Pam says she knows she was she knew she was late. Oh, love the conversation about color. Color scares me. Yeah, I think a lot of people feel intimidated by.
Yeah, so I have a colored Portuguese knitting class now in Vogue Knitting in January. So besides the technique in color work, I teach also a part. It's a 2-day class. So on the first day, the subject it's all about color and how to combine colors and all this stuff before we pick up our needles. So if you struggle with color, it's a good opportunity to do it. Yeah.
Is that in the January one?
Yeah, January 1. Yeah, January 1.
Okay, I'll email you later. Because would I be able to just pop in for part 1? I don't need the knitting part, but I wouldn't mind learning a little, how to combine. We'll chat. Because I told Gabby that. Oh, what day is it? Or is it the weekday or the weekends?
I don't remember. I think it's the weekends. I think it's Saturday and Sunday.
Oh, rock on! Because I told Gabby I only wanted to work Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, the first one I teach on Thursday. It's the Bavarian twist stitches.
Oh, I love that stuff. So beautiful.
Yeah. The first one, the second one, it's modifying lace patterns, lace stitches, and the other 2, yeah, it's Saturday and Sunday. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because the only thing I'm a little sad about is I'm trying to get some weekends to myself where I'm not working, because I'm working almost every weekend, and then I'm also working during the week. So that basically, if you add that 5 and 2 together, that equals 7. That is how many days I've been working. Yeah, so I told Gabby, like, can we please just keep me on Thursday and Friday? But that means I'm teaching all day Thursday and all day Friday. So I may live to regret that.
Yeah. And since I'm seeing there's a lot of people struggling with color work, with color choices, maybe I will make a class about only combining colors and choosing color.
I really think that I think that would be great, because I think that people see sometimes a color work pattern will come out and it's available as a kit, but the kit can be very expensive. It could be out of a yarn that people can't afford, or maybe they can't get that yarn based on where they live, whatever, a lot of reasons, which means they're left to try to figure out how to make that garment with their own color choices. And I do think that stops a lot of people from knitting color work more even than the technique itself. Feeling like
on the color work class, it's only a little bit about it. It's not so much because I don't have time, because the people want to knit basically. Yeah, but it's a good subject. Yeah.
Or you know what else? You should talk to Gabby about, that would be a good subject for an hour-long lecture.
Yeah.
You should mention that to Gabby instead of doing a 2-hour class. That would be a perfect hour-long lecture. Let's see. Okay, let me see if I'm. Oh, Chris says, yeah, I didn't know this style was good if you have arthritis. Yes, never. I do power through because I don't want to stop knitting. No, you can never power through. If Carson Demirs was here, he would tell you, never power through. You have to take breaks. Patty, are you going to expand your attendance again? No, your classes sell crazy fast. I know, I'm sorry. No, I can't extend them anymore. They are at the Vogue max. So only one class, and really, I'll be honest, it was Vogue made a mistake. All 4 of my classes were supposed to be set at the Vogue max, but they didn't. They set one of them at the wrong number. So I said, no, add 10 more spots, and then those went. But I can't expand them anymore because they're already at the Vogue max. Sorry. Okay. So, oh my gosh, it's after 3 and I've kept you long enough. So is there anything you'd love to tell these lovely people, some of whom are just meeting you for the first time, what you would hope that they would know about you? Or, I don't know, anything you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, I would like to tell that for someone who wants to know new technique, learn a different style of knitting, also to be interesting in different ways of teaching, because I'm quite different teaching all the kinds of stuff you normally knew before. You can know more about my work also on my Instagram, on my website, and all the stuff. Yeah, and I just love to teach, so I miss really a lot being with the people right now, and I think we pass this thing very soon, so we can meet up each other and hug, because I'm a hug person and I like to be with students.
I told Gabby that I cannot even imagine the very first Vogue Knitting was 11 years ago, and the first and I've been with them since the first show, and the first teacher meeting, it was so out of control because we were all so excited that Gabby had to stand on the table to yell to get our attention. And I said, I cannot even wrap my brain around what that teacher meeting is going to be like when we're all together again. It's going to be complete and utter chaos, but in the best way. It'll be chaos in the best way. Well, I'll put your website and all that information. They always know to look at the notes below for all the information, and they can find everything through your website, right? From there, you can get to your Instagram, to everything else, your teaching schedule, all of that stuff. And do you happen to know as of today, if there's any space left in your January classes? Should they go to Vogue?
The Bavarian Twisted Stitches is sold out. Another two, there's still some places, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, those twisted stitches are so gorgeous. And it's one of the things that I like to say, that every mistake in knitting is an advanced knitting technique you didn't happen to mean to use at that particular time.
I just love the old charts they have. The charts they have.
Yeah, they're gorgeous. Well, thank you. Lexi says, thank you for introducing me to Andre. Oh, that's so sweet. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And we have a little saying that we always say to each other as we get ready to go. And I'm going to get ready to, okay, there we go. So there's a 30-second delay. So I always warn folks, you can type it in as we part ways. And it's more important than ever now, please remember, yes, the vaccine is coming, but this is not the time to fall down on our saying, which is wash your hands, don't touch your face, wear a mask, knit on. So that is what we say to each other as we go. So thank you so much. And I hope the new year brings us light and an end to hopefully democracy trying to be killed throughout the world, and knit on.
Yeah, knit on. Thank you so much.
Thanks, you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a wonderful 2021.